Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today,
Yeah.
where we're going to be tackling one of the cornerstones of economics, supply and demand.
Yeah.
You're probably thinking, ugh, Econ 101.
Right.
But trust me, this isn't your average textbook lecture.
No.
We're going to uncover how these forces play out in
Yeah.
ways you might not expect.
Exactly.
From the price of your favorite sneakers
Oh,
to the
yeah.
crazy world of tech gadgets.
Exactly. How do they determine the price of those things? That's what we're going to get into.
Yeah, so you might not realize it, but supply and demand are constantly shaping the marketplace.
That's right.
Understanding them is like
It's like
getting a backstage pass.
Yeah, a behind-the-scenes look.
It's how prices are determined
Yeah.
and how this whole system works.
The whole system.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Okay.
We've got supply, how much of something is available,
Right.
and demand,
Yeah.
how much people actually want it.
Exactly.
What makes these two concepts so powerful?
Well, they're the driving force behind pretty much every transaction that takes place. I mean, they determine the price you pay for everything,
Wow,
from a cup of coffee to a car.
really?
And on a larger scale, they can influence investment decisions, resource allocation, and even international trade.
So it's not just about what's on the shelves at the store.
No, no, no.
It's about the entire global economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take smartphones as an example.
Okay.
The price of a new phone isn't just some random number.
Right.
It's determined by this intricate interplay of supply and demand.
Okay, I'm following. So let's say there's a new phone that everyone's hyped about, but there are only a limited number available at launch.
Right. You've got high demand chasing a limited supply.
I see.
And that creates a seller's market.
Okay.
Where the manufacturer can charge a premium price.
Oh, so they can kind of get away with charging more?
A little bit, yeah. Remember what happened with those new gaming consoles a few years back?
Oh, yeah.
People were camping out paying exorbitant prices online.
It was crazy.
All because demand was through the roof.
Yeah, I remember that. Some people were even reselling them for double the price.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So let's say the manufacturer wants to avoid that frenzy.
Okay.
They decide to ramp up production.
Okay. So that's where things get interesting.
Okay.
As they produce more phones, the supply increases. Assuming demand stays relatively constant.
Right.
That increased supply should start to bring the price down.
Okay, so more supply,
Yeah.
less scarcity, prices become more reasonable.
Exactly.
But what happens if something throws a wrench in the supply chain?
Ooh, that's when we see the real power of these forces at play.
Okay.
Let's say there's a global shortage of microchips,
Uh-oh.
a key component in those smartphones.
Right.
Suddenly, the manufacturers can't produce as many phones as they planned.
So we're back to limited supply, even though demand might still be high. Yeah.
You got it.
What happens then?
We see prices rise.
Right.
Manufacturers have to adjust to the increased cost of components.
Right.
And that cost gets passed on to the consumer.
Makes sense.
You might even see those new phone releases delayed or priced higher than expected.
Wow, it's like a domino effect.
It is.
One disruption can ripple through the entire market.
The whole thing.
So we've talked about how supply can be impacted by things like shortages or production costs. What are some of the key drivers on the demand side?
Well, price is obviously a big one.
Okay.
Generally, as the price of something goes up, demand goes down.
Okay.
This is the classic law of demand.
Right.
Think about it.
Yeah.
If the price of your daily latte suddenly doubled,
Oh, God.
would you still buy it every day?
Probably not. I might start making coffee at home.
Right.
Or looking for a cheaper alternative.
Exactly.
So price is a big lever.
Huge. Yeah.
What else influences how much people want something?
Well, income plays a significant role.
Okay.
As people's incomes rise, they tend to have more disposable income, leading to increased demand for a wider range of goods and services.
Okay.
Think about it. If you got a big raise,
Ooh.
would your spending habits change?
Definitely.
Right.
Maybe I'd finally splurge on that new phone we were just talking about.
There you go.
But it's not just about having more money, right?
No.
Trends and fads can create huge spikes in demand.
Absolutely. Trends can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Especially in fast-moving industries like fashion or tech.
Oh, yeah.
Remember those fidget spinners?
Oh, my God.
They were everywhere for a short time.
Totally.
Then demand vanished almost overnight.
Poof.
Gone.
Yeah, just like that.
Speaking of trends, let's talk about ride sharing.
Okay.
When those apps first came out, It seemed like everyone was ditching taxes.
Yeah.
How did that impact the taxi industry?
That's a perfect example of how a shift in consumer preferences,
Okay.
fueled by new technology,
Right.
can disrupt an entire industry.
The sudden popularity of ride-sharing apps caused a huge drop in demand for traditional taxis.
Oh, wow.
And what happened to the price of those taxi medallions?
The what?
The permits required to operate a taxi.
Oh, okay.
They plummeted.
So those medallions,
Yeah.
once considered a valuable investment,
Oh, yeah.
lost a significant amount of value because the demand for traditional taxis dropped.
That's right.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It highlights just how dynamic and sometimes unpredictable
For sure.
the forces of supply and demand can be.
Exactly. And it's not just about trendy gadgets or transportation.
Okay.
Even essential goods can be affected by these forces.
Oh, wow.
Especially during times of uncertainty.
Like during the pandemic.
Yes.
When everyone was stockpiling toilet paper and hand sanitizer.
The shelves were bare.
Right. Fear and uncertainty drove this massive surge in demand for those products.
Wow.
Far exceeding the available supply.
So there just wasn't enough.
No, there wasn't.
And that led to shortages.
Nope.
Price gouging.
And a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, a lot of stress.
It's amazing how our emotions like fear can impact the market in such a tangible way.
It really is, yeah.
So we've seen how supply is influenced by things like production costs and technology, while demand is driven by price income trends and even our own anxieties.
Absolutely.
Where do we go from here?
Well, we've only scratched the surface.
Oh, really?
In the next part, we'll delve deeper into the psychological aspects of supply and demand,
Okay.
exploring those behavioral patterns that can really amplify these economic forces.
Ooh, I can't wait. We're just getting started. And this is already more fascinating than I expected.
I know, right?
Join us for part 2 of this deep dive, as we uncover even more about the hidden forces shaping our world.
It's going to be good.
Welcome back. Last time we explored how supply and demand impact everything from the price of smartphones to the rise and fall of entire industries.
Right. And we saw how those forces can be influenced by factors like production costs and technology consumer trends, even global events.
But you mentioned that we were just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
What else is there to uncover about these seemingly simple concepts?
Well, today let's delve into the psychological side of economics.
Okay.
The human element that can sometimes make those textbook definitions feel a bit more real and relatable.
Okay. I'm intrigued. We talked about how fear played a role in the pandemic panic buying.
Yeah.
But how else do our emotions and behaviors influence these economic forces?
Well, think about it. We're not always rational actors in the marketplace.
Okay.
We're influenced by our fears, our desires, our perceptions of what's cool or valuable.
So it's not just about numbers and charts.
No.
There's a whole layer of human psychology at play.
Exactly. Let's go back to that panic buying example.
Okay.
The fear of missing out, the sense of urgency, the herd mentality.
Right?
All of these things can create a feedback loop that drives demand far beyond what's rational or necessary.
You see it all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
A snowstorm is predicted, and suddenly everyone's rushing to the store to buy milk and bread, even if they have plenty at home.
Exactly. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
The fear of scarcity creates the very scarcity it feels.
So how can we as consumers become more aware of these psychological traps and avoid making decisions based on fear or hype?
Well, awareness is the first step.
All right.
Recognize that your emotions can cloud your judgment,
Right.
especially in situations where there's a sense of urgency or scarcity.
So take a deep breath,
Yeah.
assess the situation rationally, and resist the urge to stockpile unless there's a genuine need.
Right.
Don't let fear dictate your shopping cart.
I like that.
What about trends? They seem to have a huge impact on demand.
Absolutely. Trends by their very nature are often driven by social influence
Okay.
and a desire to fit in or be seen as in the know.
So we see everyone wearing a certain type of shoe or using a particular app,
Right.
and we feel compelled to join in.
Exactly. And this creates a surge in demand,
Okay.
which can lead to higher prices and sometimes even shortages.
I've definitely fallen victim to that. Remember those designer sneakers that everyone was obsessed with a few years ago?
Oh, yeah.
I waited in line for hours to buy a pair, then realized I didn't even like them that much.
We've all been there. The key is to be aware of those psychological forces at play and to ask yourself, do I really want this?
Okay.
Or am I just caught up in the hype?
So how do we avoid getting swept away by the next big trend? Is it even possible?
It's not about avoiding trends altogether.
Okay.
They're part of what makes the marketplace dynamic and interesting.
Yeah.
The key is to be a conscious consumer.
Hmm.
Do your research, compare prices, and don't feel pressured to buy something just because everyone else is?
So think before you click buy now,
Yes,
especially
boy.
when it comes to those trendy items that might lose their appeal sooner than you think.
That's right.
It's about separating genuine desire from that fear of missing out.
Exactly. And remember, those trends often fade as quickly as they emerge,
Oh, yeah.
leaving businesses with excess inventory and consumers wondering what all the fuss was about.
This is fascinating. It's like we're peeling back another layer of the onion,
Yeah.
revealing the complex interplay of economic
Mm.
principles and those sometimes irrational human impulses.
Really interesting.
And that awareness is powerful.
Yeah.
By understanding those behavioral patterns, the fear that drives panic, buying the allure of trends, and the herd mentality that often fuels those frenzies,
Right.
you can gain a deeper understanding of how markets really work
For sure.
and make more informed choices.
It all comes
So
together.
it's not just about economics, it's about psychology, sociology, even a bit of anthropology.
Precisely. It's all interconnected.
Wow.
And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll
Hmm.
explore how this understanding can help you not just as a consumer, but potentially as an investor as well.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into supply and demand.
We've explored the basic principles, those surprising real-world examples, and even the psychology behind those market forces.
It's amazing how these seemingly simple concepts can be so complex and fascinating when you really start to unpack them.
Right. And today, let's shift our focus from being savvy consumers to exploring how this knowledge can make you a more informed investor.
Okay, I'm ready to level up my investment game. But how exactly do supply and demand play into the world of stocks and investments?
Well, at its core, investing is about assessing potential for future growth and profitability, right?
Right.
By understanding the dynamics of supply and demand for a particular company's products or services, you can gain valuable insights into its long-term prospects.
So it's not just about chasing the latest hot stock tip,
No.
but really digging into the underlying forces
Yeah.
that drive a company's success.
Exactly. Let's say you're considering investing in a company that makes electric vehicles.
Okay, EVs are definitely a hot topic right now.
Right. But instead of just jumping on the bandwagon, you could use your knowledge of supply and demand to ask some critical questions.
Okay, like what?
What's the current demand for EVs? Is it a fad or is there sustained growth potential? What factors might influence future demand, government policies, technological advancements, changing consumer preferences?
So I'm looking beyond the hype
Yeah,
and considering the bigger picture.
exactly. Then on the supply side, you could analyze the company's production capacity,
Yeah?
its access to raw materials, and any potential supply chain bottlenecks.
That's where those microchip shortages we talked about earlier could really impact things.
Right. You're looking for companies that are well-positioned to meet growing demand without being hampered by supply constraints.
Yeah.
And you're considering factors that might disrupt that delicate balance between supply and demand in the future.
This is making me realize that investing is a lot more nuanced than I thought.
Yeah.
It's not just about picking stocks, it's about understanding entire industries and the forces that shape them.
Precisely. By applying the principles of supply and demand, you can gain a competitive edge in the marketplace.
Wow.
It's about being a strategic investor, not just a reactive one.
So instead of just following the crowd,
Right.
I'm doing my own research, analyzing trends, and making informed decisions based on a deeper understanding of how markets actually work.
Exactly. And remember, this knowledge isn't just for Wall Street analysts.
Okay.
It's accessible to anyone willing to learn and apply it.
This has been an incredible journey.
Yeah.
From those Econ 101 basics to those aha moments that have completely changed my perspective.
It's been fun.
And hopefully you feel empowered to use this knowledge to navigate the marketplace.
Yeah.
Whether you're buying a cup of coffee, investing in a company, or even just understanding the world around you a little better.
Absolutely.
I definitely do. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what's the most important takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
Supply and demand are more than just abstract concepts. They're the driving forces behind the global economy,
Wow.
shaping our choices, influencing prices, and even impacting our daily lives.
They're the invisible hand guiding the marketplace.
They are.
And now we have a glimpse behind the curtain.
That's a good way to put it.
And remember, this knowledge is power. By understanding these forces, you can make more informed decisions, become a savvier consumer, and even potentially a more successful investor.
For sure.
This has been an amazing deep dive, leaving me with a newfound appreciation for the power of supply and demand. Thanks for joining us on this enlightening adventure. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a fascinating topic.
Until then, keep those economic wheels turning.